It's a beautiful facility off of 19.
The ice cream thing.
Oh. Normally, I used to see a bunch of people at Starbucks or the display.
Event details. No. Ocean 79 downstairs.
I love the murals on the wall there, Liz. I hadn't seen this before. Right. There we have our video there from Winmore Healthcare. And now I'd like to invite Elizabeth, Liz, as she's affectionately known here, to NAMI. I'm just happy to have Liz come and talk with us today just a little bit about Winmore, our sponsor today. So Liz, if you'd come off of mute and share a little bit, that'd be great.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Winmore that you just saw. My name is Elizabeth Liz Rock, and I am the community outreach person with Winmore Healthcare. And I love what I do for the community, especially my role in being a provider for mental health in our community. I always like to lead with a little statistic for men, especially in mental health. Over 6 million men suffer from depression. And male depression goes unnoticed because it's masked in other things. Another area of mental health that you don't consider, 10% of our male population suffers some type of eating disorder. So to say all that, we are the only freestanding behavioral health facility located in Clearwater. All we do is treat mental health and substance use disorders. As you saw from the video, we have different categories of what we support, namely older adults. We have an addictions treatment unit, and we are a very proud supporter of our United States military, veterans, and uniformed personnel. So that is just a general idea of the populations that we treat. We only treat adults 18 to whatever to infinity, and we are 24/7 Baker Act receiving facility. So as you can see behind me, don't hesitate to call. All of our therapists or groups or psychosocial or psychotherapy groups are led by licensed RNs, caseworkers, psychiatrists on staff. Call us first. We're there 24/7. You can give us a call at 727-322-7222, and I will drop my information in the chat below. So go ahead and give us a call. So proud to be a part of NAMI. So proud to be a part of this community. Thank you all for coming. That's
Great, great. Well, again, thank you so much, Liz. Liz too has been a member of NAMI for quite many years. She's just awesome in that we are a grassroots organization, so we can't be everywhere. But whenever Liz is out in the community, we're really excited that if we can't get out there ourselves, she says, oh, I can, come on, let me have some information and I'll share it out with the community while I'm there. So we really do appreciate her carrying us along with her in her travels. So again, today what we're going to talk about as our learning agenda is we're going to talk a little bit about what mental health is and how it plays a role in mental health, men's mental health, and what are some resources that men in our community have utilized or that have found to be useful, and overall how to maintain that positive mental health. And then we'll finish up with some Q&A, some questions from our audience members. So now let's go ahead and dive into learning a little bit about who is going to be on our panel today. So first we have Mr. Andrew Du Bois. Andrew, would you like to come off of mute and share a little bit about yourself? Who is Mr. Andrew and why you wanted to come on to our webinar to share a little bit about yourself today?
Okay, hello again. My name is Andrew Du Bois. As you can see, I'm a psychotherapy advocate, but mental health advocate in general. And it's a pleasure to be here, especially, just tackling the stigma for this month. I hadn't known that May was the month of mental health awareness. So it's beautiful to be involved now and moving forward. I can't wait to see what's discovered, Personally, I'm 28 years old. I trade Forex. I don't know if you guys heard about that, foreign exchange market, but pretty much along stocks, technical analysis, fundamental. I just know how to read a chart and I know how to make a little money myself. Me personally, I would say I kind of got into mental health quite young, just playing football, dealing with concussions. And there was quite a bit of stigma to how I thought, because I got into, I guess I wanted to be a detective very young. So I got into, it's gonna sound weird, serial killers and that thought pattern, because we got exposed to it very young. So it is all about exposure, but it was very interesting to see what God, put on this earth and how we go through thought patterns and we seem normal and have normal jobs and we have families, we make money, obviously. And it was just mind blowing, the things that can be done on this earth and the things that we do to each other, whether it be family, whether it be friends. So my main purpose for coming today, it's just a learning experience. I love to learn and I like to be a student and remain a student in this because there's still things going on today every now and then, whether it be discrimination, whether it be prejudice, whether it be racism, you name it, it all goes into mental health. And personally, what I had to do was just kind of analyze myself. I did reach out to get a therapist myself, just knowing that I dealt with many things going in my family and with how I handled many situations, whether it be relationships, school, previous employment. So I write down a lot of my thoughts and go over my behaviors and reflect on my day-to-day and my perceived bad actions. Sometimes it's a learning thing. So it can be a loss or a lesson to you, depending on who you are. But mainly, I came here to be a student and to continue to learn from people who are my age, people who are older than me, and people who have actually went through, hand in hand. Because I don't feel like personally my instances were that great in comparison, but to put the spotlight on myself, I do think mental health is something that isn't my best strong suit yet. But even though I'm exercising, I'm working on my diet, hydrating, and connecting to what I believe is my creator. There's always more to learn. So I'm just here to be a student, and I appreciate you guys having me.
Great, great. Yeah, well, thank you. You have so many nuggets of good information in there too. So I'm really excited about being able to break down some of that here in just a little bit. So, but thank you again for sharing. All right. Well, now how about Ben? Ben Sehi, would you be able to come off of mute and share, introduce yourself a little bit and share with the audience how come you'd like to come and share a little bit about you here today?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Ben Sehi. I am a mental health advocate. I work with NAMI in Pinellas County. I'm on the board of directors currently. And I had a very early mental health diagnosis as a teenager with bipolar disorder. And my struggle and my kind of path to balance is what led me to be an advocate. I feel like I didn't have the easiest journey. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way, and it's unfortunate. My goal is to help end the stigma in all communities, but specifically my own, including men and the LGBTQIA community. I also do a lot of outreach as far as that goes. I host events and fundraisers and different things, but yeah, it's definitely been a long journey for me. And I feel like it's one that could have been made a lot easier had some conversations been made more accessible to me earlier on, and some of that stigma had been removed. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help end that stigma and help start some conversations about mental health and about kind of how we operate as people.
Great, great. All right. Well, thank you for that, Ben. I definitely can. I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm liking it. It's good preview. So, all right. And then next, our final speaker will be Pastor Carlos Azari. How about you, Mr. Carlos? Would you be able to come off of mute and share, introduce yourself to us?
Sure. I think I'm out of mute. Thank you for the invitation, and I thank you for everyone that is present in this webinar. So my name is Carlos Irizarry, and I am a registered nurse, a paramedic registered nurse for 20 years. I have worked in settings as ERs. I worked 7 years for the sheriff in jails and prisons systems, correctional help. I did some home help, and eventually I ended, the last few years in the corporate setting as a corporate nurse. So throughout the nursing experience and healthcare, I have dealt with a lot of patients with mental health illnesses, but I also have experience of having, as an ally, taking care of brother for more than 30 years now with bipolar disorders. And I also, in 2017, I had a trauma surgery, diagnosed with cancer, and surgery kind of went wrong, and it took me to this roller coaster of 3 different more surgeries, and affected me physically, emotionally. And so for the first time, when I tried to go back to work, my manager said, you should go and see a psych mental evaluation. And I went, and they did not know that I was coming out with 4 different diagnoses. And one of them was the PTSD, and non-specific depression, non-specific anxiety due to the, for what just happened to me. But that trigger a way long time trauma in childhood. So it brought me back so many years back. And then I started paying more attention. This is something that I need to pay more attention. And I started, I decided to put aside the career of nursing, and I'm also a senior pastor, and I went to work more towards the behavioral health aspect, and knowing that this is something real, it's something that if it's not treated, it can kill you. And then in more specific, the reason I'm here today, that men, when they deal with mental health, is so different as a woman. And I decided to start dealing on a one-to-one with lots of men on the behavioral health, especially drug use and recovery. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this webinar.
Yes, yes, definitely. Again, I'm really happy that the three of you had come on because, just in your shares so far, we here at NAMI believe it just so important to talk about what's going on and continue on with the conversation and really create spaces like this to where it is okay to talk about it. So that it becomes more of the mainstream. So specific to men's mental health, I can imagine how difficult it could be with the patriarchal issues that we face, that masculinity of mental health. And I'm so proud because all three of you had shared that you had reached out to get some support. When you did that, how did you overcome the stigma to do that? And how do you think that your loved ones or your peer group around you, I imagine that could have been a little stressful to talk about you reaching out and needing help, given that we have our gender roles that are just still so strong in our community. Is there anyone that would like to answer that to get us started?
Well, if I may, as a man of faith, I understand that God wired us differently, men and women, and that we cope situations differently. Obviously, the man is, the supporter. He brings the resources to the house, although now we know that men and women are equally can do it, but it's always in a man that the mentality that he's if he doesn't work, if he doesn't bring the money, he feels men less. So, for instance, I want to say that this crisis that we have experienced, the COVID and the pandemic, we have 917 million people in the world affected by COVID and by mental health through the COVID season. We see that men had cope with this different than women or young, the young generation, because they feel that having mental health deficiencies, or they feel that they're anxious or depressed about something because of the symptoms, memory loss, or the COVID has affected jobs, economy, family, relationship. Those are four strong values for men. Okay, so they have taken this more personal. All right. So what happened is that, but although they take it personal, they go like through panic episodes, they go through social anxiety, but yet they take it as a weakness. Having these symptoms, they take it as a weakness to their character, to their strength and character, but they still suffer in silence. they still suffer in silence. Why? Because if they express them, they may think people think they think that people think that they're weak, so they suffer in silence. And so what's happening with the, like a panic attack that they begin to breathe fast and they begin to feel weak. You see the physical symptoms attack the emotional as well. And but yet they're very hard to express them and even admit it to other men. So, later on, we're going to talk about solutions, but what it is how to break the stigma, especially in cultures. I'm a Hispanic, and I know, I have a multi-ethnic church, African American, and we are very machistas. And so we don't express our weaknesses, to other people.
So
Mhm.
yeah, going off of that, Carlos, that's amazing. And that goes exactly into how I feel. And that exact reason is part of why my diagnosis came later than it should have with mental health. I feel like as children and as male children, we're taught to hide. We're taught to hide our weaknesses. We're taught to shield ourselves from that. And we're taught that we're supposed to be the strong ones. And if we struggle with something, that we should figure it out on our own. And oftentimes, as the statistic that we mentioned earlier, 6 million men are suffering with depression. That's just what's been diagnosed.
Correct.
That's not always possible. And it is a human need for us to be able to communicate with each other. And a lot of times we can't solve our own problems. And it's okay for us to talk with each other about it. So my diagnosis, I don't know if any of you know a lot about bipolar disorder, how it works, but my particular diagnosis came with psychosis. And in psychosis, basically what your brain does is it locks itself into this cycle and it feeds itself and it says, this is your reality. This is how things are. And it forces you even further to hide from people that you care about, to be able to further that psychosis, to continue the cycle. And until you are able to break through and realize, no, this isn't reality, whether that's someone externally talking to you about it or you being able to discuss some of the things that you're thinking and feeling, you don't get better. It just gets worse. You either further spiral into mania or depression or both in a lot of cases. And it's not a fun thing. I spiraled pretty hard when I was in college, and I had been experiencing psychosis for a really long time and didn't know it. It had been years that I had been experiencing it, and I was taught to further and further hide how I felt because of my surroundings. I grew up in a really small town, and from being a little kid, looking around you, your male role models are strong. You never see a male cry. You never see anyone talk about their feelings. And so, even if I had a family who supported me, your external teaches you that that's the way things are, and you accept it. And I didn't know how to talk about how I was thinking or feeling. I thought that everyone felt the way that I did. And that is how psychosis functions. You start to think that everyone must be this way. So, oh, this is fine. This is how I should be feeling. This is normal. And you just don't talk about it and you internalize it until you end up either harming yourself or others. And I wish that it had been more normal and accepted for me to talk about how I felt. And the more that I venture out and speak to other people about mental health, the more I realize so many people just aren't talking about it. And for what? You know what I mean? I feel like more strength comes from you communicating and you showing someone how you've dealt with something and having that kind of empathy than teaching someone else how to hide.
Yeah, wow, that is definitely powerful for sure. For sure. Well, Andrew, I did see that you put in the chat 100%. You're definitely agreeing with what Pastor Carlos had said, and perhaps Ben as well.
Most
Would you like to
definitely.
share?
And most definitely. One big challenge for me was definitely knowing. I think knowing was one of the biggest symptoms. One of the reasons I ran from not getting seeking professional help was knowing. Much like a lot of the people in college, I noticed around a certain part of time, people did not want to get tested sexually. So I think a lot of knowing is what becomes a symptom. And that kind of sent me into a spiral because it's interesting, Ben talking about having bipolar disorder, because for a nice chunk of my career in football, when I got to the collegiate level, I started suffering from a lot of concussions, and we kind of have that military type of mindset, whereas you don't speak about it, it's weakness, don't be a punk, don't be this, that, and the third. They use these things to kind of trap your brain and make you feel like you're being more of a man by closing your mouth and just taking the pain quietly. So you have injuries, you don't talk about it. You have concussions, it might mess up your scholarship or your playing time. You're dealing with violence off the field, which can be a major contribution from what's been happening to you. And we just don't talk about it. So symptomatic one for me was knowing and being able to say, yes, this is definitely a possibility for me, before even knowing that my family might have had some previous mental health issues, genetically speaking. So what Pastor was speaking about, very strong, definitely old fashioned. And my own father, I had a struggle with him trying to get him to open up, because it was something that I noticed, because I'm the youngest of my family, besides my little sister. But it was very difficult getting him to open up because of his parents. I didn't know my grandparents or my great grandparents, but from his mouth, they loved by action. They weren't very they didn't know how to converse about emotions at that time. They weren't emotionally intelligent. So his father didn't give him hugs. His father didn't tell him he loved him. His father didn't say good job, or you're doing great, or you're making me proud. And that right there, kind of turned him into someone who, instead of we say now, let me be the change that I want to see and be the person that I didn't have in my life, we turn into the exact same person that we feel like kind of hindered us from growing and developing more and evolving more. So I think just knowing was big for me. And I'd like to ask Ben, what was his give, what was his I guess his sign, what was his main sign? Because I'm African American. I've dealt with a lot of discrimination, and telling someone, when you already feel low, telling someone that something else is wrong with you besides, the perceived color of your skin, or besides, your IQ or whatever you may have, telling someone, oh yeah, and on another note, besides me being this, that, and the third, I also, am bipolar. I also have suicidal thoughts. I also am depressed. I also, people kind of just push you away and say, I don't know anything about that, and they'd like to feel like they don't have that in their reality, like people around them and in their community don't suffer from these things, So I'd like to ask Ben about that as well, because I always feared the symptom of knowing, because I just, you kind of anticipate and you jump ahead and think that now everybody's going to treat you because of that one factor, instead of how you carry yourself daily and how your integrity is. You think about that one flaw and you use that to kind of, navigate and narrate throughout your life and think, oh, I didn't get a job because I'm bipolar. Oh, this relationship didn't work because I'm bipolar, so on and so forth.
That's excellent. That you hit the nail exactly on the head. And I actually had someone approach me when I was in college. He was my roommate, and he noticed how aggressive and different my behavior was. And it kind of came with being in close quarters with someone for that long for someone to notice, because like I said, I had hidden it for a long time and I didn't even know I was hiding it. And he told me, he said, I don't know what's wrong or what's going on, but this is not normal. He said, people do not react to things the way that you are. And he told me that he cared about me and that he wanted to help me get help if that's what I wanted. And I ended up going to a therapy appointment, and I ended up with a diagnosis. And after that, after medication and some other things, that also led to a suicide attempt because I was imbalanced and I just didn't understand how to deal with what was going on. And still, even after therapy, I wasn't comfortable talking about what was happening with me or communicating, what I needed to be able to feel healthy. And he helped me through that as well, and ended up helping me check into a hospital and kind of getting critical treatment and then moving forward from there. But if I had not had that person to point that out, I don't know if anyone ever would have caught it. And that's unfortunate. I don't think that he was the only one that witnessed that kind of behavior from me, but he felt like it was necessary for him to talk about it because it was in his space. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily think that it came from a place where he was like overly concerned with me because he cared about me. It was like, oh, this is happening in my house. Like I need it to, it should not be happening. And that's unfortunate because I think that he as well was afraid to talk about it. And, as far as being open about it and as far as talking about it, I feel like over the last several years, as I mentioned before, I've been a big advocate for the LGBTQIA community. And even then, toxic masculinity is rampant. It's awful. And we feel like still we're supposed to hide, even though, the people that I deal with have come out and we've already said, this is who we are. It's still like, oh, but internally, this is still who we are. And I have found that owning my diagnosis and being able to talk about it has given me a kind of strength that transcends into other things. For instance, in job interviews and career paths and any kind of meetings and things that I have a kind of confidence that I carry because I don't have anything to hide. I don't have anything that I feel like is shameful about what's happening to me because I can't control this. Like, this isn't a choice that I made. It's not like I chose to steal something. It's not like I'm a bad person. This is just a thing that has happened to me. And I think that there is a major strength that comes with accepting who you are and then using it to be able to help others and to advocate for others so that they don't have to feel the same way and struggle the way that you have. So that's my number one thing, is to, reach out and continue with therapy, continue talking about your struggle and continue coming to terms with it, because the sooner that you accept who you are and are able to be comfortable in your own skin, the more that exudes to other people, and you'll lose that kind of fear of people finding out or that lack of comfort.
So
Yeah, that's very
so
good.
Ben is probably one of the number one things that Ben mentioned, that men, if it will help men cope with these symptoms, or maybe onset symptoms or diagnosis, is that once these symptoms start kind of expressing on a physically, for instance, panic attacks, frequent panic attacks that increase chest pains and things like that, they are okay to go to a doctor, to primary doctor, and check themselves. They do a EKG, and then when the doctor tells them everything is normal, blood, EKG is normal, but the doctor said maybe you should go and see behavioral health, a side doctor, and things like that. Most men would not make that referral. You see, most men would not make that the referral. So what's happening is that once they don't take care of themselves on emotionally, this symptoms that expressing emotionally, physically, spiritually, because spiritually too, people are afraid, can go from questioning God, why God, why is this happening to me? Why this situation, why I supposed to get, also can go to the other extreme, that they have spirituality grandiose, you know, they can go through that too. But the thing is that it can attack your physical, your emotional, it attacks your spiritual, and emotional expression is important. The thing is about solutions on mental health and how we can get better. Although they're pretty much similar, men and women, men tend to see them as too feminine or too, that's not for me. For instance, talk about it, expressions, feelings, talk about your feelings, journal, write down. I mean, isn't men don't hardly journal. Monitor yourself, look, write down specific, what's happening in the morning, what's happening in the afternoon, or maybe when you go to bed. Physically, how the body is reacting, how the body feels. And sometimes I have to say this in front of everyone. I'm a nurse and I have no shame to say it. There are men that start losing desire to have sexual relationships, you know, sexual activity with their spouses, but yet they're looking at something that can bring them up or something fast, and they tend to go into pornography. So that happens a lot. So it goes to the physical, it goes to the emotional. Men tends to now, instead of doing something like a non-aerobic exercises, because men tends to do heavy stuff, they want to just punch the bag, or they want to run 10 miles, or they want to just lift 300 pounds all at once. They end up injuring themselves. But the thing is that if you do things so heavy, so fast, it can increase your heart rate, it can increase your breathing, and then that make it worse. That make your mental health symptoms worse. So yoga, stretching, move the body, but it don't have to be at 100 miles per hour. Try to, this is what have worked for me, and I tell everyone, mindfulness, and it's about self-awareness, okay? And it's about what's surrounding you, environment, the people. And also, if you put in a list of the good and the bad, I'm telling you right now, there's more good than bad. And so when you are you're exercising mindfulness, you begin to see that goodness is better than evil, and you begin to appreciate things more. An example was that I had cervical surgery, and it was painful. I was living in pain. The therapy was not working. I had temptations or over medicate myself. I had temptation. At one time, I saying, I wonder what the suicidal people in suicidal ideation really go through. I realized that I was contemplating that subject. So listen, what you think is what you are. And so if you think good, you are a good person. And so what's happening is that mindfulness is what helped to me, because I'm a man of faith. And when I started thanking God for the better things than the bad, I begin to meditate a verse on the Bible that says that when you exercise gratefulness, that is like medicine to your bones. And that's exactly what I needed. I needed medicine to my bones. And then in that gratefulness, I began to see that people were putting food in the front door during my time absent in my church. And for 6 months, there was no lack of dinner in my house. My wife did not have to cook. I needed to be thankful. And all that, when God told me that your body is doing therapy, physical therapy, and all that, but your mind is not in the game. So we need to have to be recovered. We need to have the spirit, the mind, and body working together. That togetherness, that cohesiveness. And that's how men tend to, instead of watching, something that can make them laugh on TV, they're like, I was watching MMA every night. every night before going to bed or boxing. And so, men, it is hard for men to do things that look more feminine than really men stuff, And mindfulness was a big help to me. Also, it's about when you start thinking, and when you start, if you think of on rough thing, on a lot of bad things, that escalate your symptoms and things like that. But why can't you tell the different narrative to yourself? Why can't you just start speaking to yourself, and look for alternative stories for yourself? Speak to yourself, encourage yourself, and then don't avoid the behavior, but do not push yourself to the max, to the limit, because you're not ready to do that yet. Because men tend to do, when they do something, they go all in.
Yeah.
But during those times of the season where you're not mentally fit, you have to pull back a little bit and not try to push yourself to the max. It's the social muscle, because men like to hang out with the guys. But when you start saying, I'm not going to go out anymore, you start isolating yourself and separating yourself from the guys, it's a big sign. But try to call someone. You don't have to make a call to tell people what to do. If you used to do that, don't try not to. Instead, call someone and says, I've been thinking about you. And that's a social muscle that you can flex, conversations about, just thinking about you, this and that, instead of being about, we need to do this, we need to do that. Those things is called gradually scaffold you into the social world. The mindfulness activity levels become familiar with your sympathetic nerve system. The fight and flight. It is a friend. Not everything has to be about fight and run and things like that. It is actually become friend with your sympathetic nerve system, because it's actually a warning that's been given to you, instead of receive it as a friend, not as attack.
Well, those are some really good.
I want to say something about the basics, and we forget the basics. We forget the basics as men, the details, and it's the breathing techniques. Then I'm going to say something that men hardly do, but candles help for me. I actually designated candles on different part of the day. And when I knew that I was going to be at the end of the day, because also we tend to overwork, right? And when I was at the end of the day, I changed candle to a different fragrance. And that smell was telling me, you're almost about the end of the day, is finished, and then go and rest. When you talk candle to a man, forget about it. But all that worked for me. All that work.
Yeah, well, Carlos, I'm glad that you shared that, because that was kind of the last question that I had for the men today was, share something that helped you, that continues to help you on your wellness journey. And us as a community, is there something like, what does that ideal community look like in order to support men's mental health? And so you again have a lot of good nuggets in there. So Ben or Andrew, how about either one of you? Is there something that you'd like to share just as we wrap it up a little bit, so we can have some time for questions from our audience?
So piggybacking off of what Carlos said, all of that loops into one thing, and it's probably the best thing that I have learned through my experience with therapy. It's that you may not be in control of how you feel, but you are in control of what you do. And if you do one thing when you are feeling like you're spiraling, or like you're out of control, or like you are too depressed to function, or you find yourself pulling away, you start to break a cycle. and you start to kind of come back to yourself, and you can slowly start to move. And I'm not talking about like going and running a 5K or like, you know what I mean, going to the gym every day in the week. I mean, literally take a shower. Okay. Get up and take a shower. Even if you don't want to, even if you feel like you don't want to do anything, take a shower or go outside and literally walk around your block. Okay. Like the simplest thing that requires no other communication with another human, start there. Start there and then move forward. And I guarantee you, the minute that you take control of your life and of how you're feeling, instead of letting how you're feeling control you, you'll start to move forward and you'll start to feel better. And that's exactly what Carlos was saying. It's about taking control. It's about taking control of your surroundings and about what's going on around you so that you can balance how you're feeling.
Yeah.
100%, 100%. Yes, to piggyback, Carlos hit every nail that I could possibly think of. So I appreciate you, Carlos, and I appreciate you, Ben, most definitely. Aromatherapy is beautiful. Why men don't talk about it? We talk about cologne, you know. We talk about several smells, you know. Personally, I've smoked. I've been a smoker for quite a bit, and aroma is something that just helps me think about good places. It helps take me to a place where nobody else can go besides being in my own head. So self-talks, of course, those are big, and it doesn't have to be so tedious, but like Ben said as well, there's a plethora of resources that you have right in front of you. Getting out and taking a cold shower, getting some sun, doing yoga. It doesn't have to be intense where you're putting your leg behind your head, but you can do some stretches that you've never done before, activate some muscles that you didn't even know were there. Another thing would be diet. I think diet is very big because a lot of people I've been around have made decisions based off of no sleep, based off of eating sugar every day, based off of eating nothing but stuff that wouldn't even, you know, be helpful to your body in the near future or in the long future. But to sum up everything, I believe that it's the integrity and that self-talk, personal, behind closed doors, that consistency and being very, very patient with yourself, being very patient, because I wanted to rush getting out of mental health. You know, I'm still in it now. I still feel like I need to be diagnosed and I need to be looked at, you know. But I feel like rushing the process was the worst thing I did, because I wanted so bad to get out of it. If I was diagnosed with bipolar, I didn't want it anymore. You know, I definitely didn't want the medication. So I frowned upon the things that were going to help me for some reason, which is a pure sign that something's wrong. You know, you don't want to be patient, but if people are telling you just be patient, what's the problem? You know, you don't want to exercise, but people telling you, hey, just drink a little more water and take a little walk. Why wouldn't you want to do it? So I think valuing yourself and your life, you know, which is a big contribution to suicide. You don't understand how valuable you are to this existence. We all coexist here together with plants, with animals, and we don't see how valuable we are to one another as an example, not only of what not to do, but what to do. I haven't had nearly enough examples of what to do as I've had of what not to do. So I think going in that direction in the future, we worry about Bitcoin, we worry about what the Fed is doing, we worry about housing, but if we work on ourselves individually from where we stand at and where we are today, just erase everything and imagine reinventing yourself today. Where can you start? What is the most accessible? What is the resources that you have available to you? And not everything is costly. So just value yourself and be very patient. Be very, very patient. And behind closed doors, start small. It doesn't have to be tedious with the self-talk, left leg, right leg, wash yourself, brush your teeth, but just give yourself a cycle, you know, and it doesn't have to involve anybody in the beginning. But you definitely want a support group. You definitely want a system and a community, wherever it may be. And it might be somebody who's completely indifferent or somebody who's you know, you wouldn't picture yourself talking to from a hole in the wall. Some of the people who have become big motivators and big advocates in my life, you know, and reasons that I've found to keep going have been people I would have never guessed in a million years. Children, you know, young people, elders, women, men, people who have recovered, people who I thought, oh, were doing worse than me, but they let go of the smoking, they let go of the drug addiction, they let go of the abuse, they let go of speaking before they act. They've completely humbled themselves and restarted their process because it's never too late. So I just urge everyone to be patient and trust yourself. You know, even if you don't have a relationship with God or your Creator, have a relationship with your inner self, because those self talks will really, they'll take you there. They'll really take you there. So I appreciate everyone again. Shout out to Nami and shout out to Ben and Carlos. You guys have been amazing, and I'm taking notes. So I look forward to the progress.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, we definitely, I mean, I really appreciate the three of you coming on, and, you know, from what the last answers that you guys had shared, you know, those are some really good truth nuggets, I suppose, when it comes to self-care, you know, finding things that are simple, that are free, that are safe, that just gets you to pause and, you know, the patience. I love that. And then you're able to just do something that makes your mindset change a little bit, whether it's lighting a candle or getting, you know, your feet into some grass outside, being able to reset yourself. So we are coming up right on the end of our webinar, but I do see that we have a few questions in the chat. So the first question, oh, go ahead, Denise.
No, I'm gonna say, no, we do, Jody, I was gonna help you with that. So one of the things, it's a question, and I'm glad that Andrew brought it up. When you all were talking about the importance of your relationships, the question is, you know, after you have been diagnosed with a mental health condition, how did that change your friendships, right? Did you find support in those social circles, but specifically with other male friends? And the reason why we're asking that is because last week when we had the women's mental health, you know, we talked about some coping skills, and a lot of times, you know, stereotyping, but, you know, women surround each other. I'm going to bring you over some food. Let's get together. Let's have a girl day. Let's go to the spa. Let's release some of that stress. So looking on the male perspective and within your social circles, what type of support did you receive from your male friends? And so Ben, I'll start with you on that if you wanted to answer.
I would love to answer that. And I think that especially in my particular community, it is very common that queer presenting males have more female friends than they do male. And growing up, I never really connected with other men. And I struggled with that for a long time. But after my mental health diagnosis, and once I started my path to recovery and I started kind of owning who I was and being more confident, a lot more straight presenting males approached me and wanted to have those kinds of bonds and friendships with me. And I don't think I understood why for a long time, but especially talking about it now, I do. And it's because I presented as a strong, confident person. And I wasn't afraid to share those struggles and to talk openly about them. And I feel like a lot of men don't have that kind of outlet, and they don't have that kind of means to bond with someone else who they physically identify with, you know, and being able to be that person for them allowed them to open up and share in a way that I think a lot of them had never had. And I'm very grateful for my close male friendships. I actually was just the best man in a wedding last week. My roommate was one of my roommates in college after the one that I talked about earlier. He was in a fraternity, and his fraternity made me an honorary member, and that's not something that they had to do. They included me in everything that they did. They all still keep up with me and talk with me on a regular basis. And just having that kind of openness with them, I think, isn't something that's typical with straight presenting men. And I think it's unfortunate. I definitely think that being more open caused me to have more healthy and functional relationships, especially specifically with other men.
Great.
Yeah, I want to say also, I want to add to that, Ben, by the way, Ben and Andrew, you have a friend here that you can call anytime.
Oh, thank you, Carlos.
Thank you,
I
man.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I'm here for you guys. But I want to say that during the time that you may have gone through these mental health symptoms, you tend to receive more calls from females than men. That's for
Oh,
sure.
yes.
No, and then when you try to seek other men, they're not as sympathetic, empathetic or compassion as the females are. So good kudos to the girls. But
Yeah.
the thing is that as a probably nurse and a pastor, I don't know what's the blessing that I have more female friends, and it's hard to find very truthful male friends. I have to say that because you remember transparency, honesty is important, and confidentiality. And so don't get personal when you having a hard time finding male friends. And I'm telling this to all men, whether you gay or straight. This has nothing to do. It's the nature of male. It's hard to find, and I'm a wellness recovery action plan. I love to teach and co-facilitate that. And when I knew that it's important to have at least five people that you can go to them when you feel there is a crisis, I was having a hard time finding male in that five circle. It was hard. It was hard. But don't give up. Don't give up. And we need to take the initiative. They're just not going to drop from the sky. We take the initiative and we open the conversation. And as honest we are and transparency we are from the get-go, it will be the better. So
Wonderful. Okay.
Most definitely. How much time we have? All right, just to add on that, I'm still suffering from not having enough people to males to speak to. Now, there was a brief moment where I felt like a lot of people would be more comfortable with me saying I'm gay, in a sense, than me being emotionally, stable. Because I'm playing football, I'm lifting weights, you're lifting 400 pounds, 600 pounds. And then they see you getting all, emotional about a relationship or about not being home or, something small. And it's just people really turn you into a patient, they turn you into a client. My struggle was speaking to people and then not becoming the victim in the conversation. It was just openness, not needing to vent, but to really kind of articulate to somebody, this is why, this is where, this is how, but I'm okay. Let's go play our game. Let's go out and party still. Let's go. It was impossible almost to get people to understand that side of me and to carry out a normal routine after that. After you open up about that, it became so different where they started to kind of assume for you, where they say, oh, we shouldn't go watch that because Andrew might not be good with that, or we might not want to go here because Andrew might not be feeling well, and oh, let's not talk about this because he was saying he was having these thoughts. So that it became a very toxic preventative behavior where they didn't want to touch subjects, they didn't want to go to certain social gatherings because they thought it would affect me negatively, and in turn that really affected me negatively. People trying to think for you, people trying to plan for you, people treating you like you're the patient, like you're the victim, like, oh, something's only wrong with you. I'm being open with my community and they instantly put the spotlight on me as if I'm the only one who could be suffering from this within a 5 or 10 mile radius, So it's just it's definitely a struggle to find males. And being people who I grew up with, my immediate friends or people who are in my community, I had to let a lot of them go, which was it's still a painful process to this day because people would like you to have something wrong with you for not being in their life anymore. People want to play the roles of antagonist and protagonist where they want to say, oh, you were the problem, it wasn't me, or I was the problem, it wasn't you, rather than we just, had a problem in our bubbles. Our spaces were detrimental to one another. They were toxic or vile to one another. And it'd be best for us to coexist from a distance. You know, I love some people, but I can only talk to them, you know, every now and then or from a distance, because in person, they've grew up with values that are kind of anti the direction our society and our you know, life is going in. We're being more, we're dealing more with awareness, you know, with trans, with the LGBTQ community, with PTSD, even with CTE and mental health with football players and soccer players and rugby players. And a lot of people still don't have the power or the mental capacity to understand the direction we're going in and why. People still come to me, I don't know why, but they come to me if someone walks in my store and they're trans and they're like, oh, would you look at that? Or would you look at this person? And I'm like, it appears that the person talking about the trans has more of a mental problem than the person who's actually trans, you know? Like Ben said, comfortability is very big. The most confident person in the room is gonna win 90% of the time. So you walking into the room feeling like you have to antagonize somebody else or talk down on somebody else still is like a cyberbullying going on. There's a social bullying, there's whispering, there's people talking in different languages.
And that
So
never has anything to do with you. That has to do with them, always.
That mirror effect, exactly.
And I want to say that when the crisis came to our lives, right? When that whatever situation was, I think it was a blessing to know who were your true friends, you know, and then who were not, and then it's been given to you an opportunity to create new friends.
Yeah, well, that is a wonderful ending to our webinar today, Carlos and Andrew and Ben. Thank you again so much for coming today and sharing a little bit about your stories and yourself with us. And again, thank you to Winmore Healthcare for helping to support our webinar today. And we will go ahead and send out the recording. Denise, do you have any final remarks you'd like to share?
Thank you, Jody. No, again, just everybody, thank you so much. I think this is a great conversation. We probably could have talked about this for so long. And I do want to remind everybody that, you know, you are not alone on your mental health journey, whether you're male, female, however you identify, that it's okay to talk about your mental health. It's more important to seek help. NAMI, we do offer free support groups, you know, to help you along your mental health journey. You do not have to have a diagnosis to join our support groups. If you're just feeling low, you needed that extra support, we are here to help you. Same thing with Winmore. We are so thankful for our partnership. You know, with Winmore, they are a great behavioral health community partner. They do a lot of work for the community. So again, if you need more of a deep dive, looking for that more of the clinician experience, please make certain to reach out to Winmore so you can learn more about their services. But again, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to hosting more a Lunch and Learned. Please visit our website at nami-pinellas.org to learn more about any upcoming events. I will say we are doing a walk on October 8th to raise awareness for mental health. So again, on behalf of the board and staff, we want to thank you so much for your time today and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.